Welcome back, everybody. Sergeant Note here, or Eli. Some of you, happy Sunday. I hope you had a great, outstanding week and that it was productive, right? You get time to accomplish whatever you wanted with your week, whether it was personal goals or business goals. And yeah, so this is officially part one of my little mini series of myself because I like talking about myself. I'm awesome. But in regards to my life going from the civilian and becoming an airman in the Air Force, and right now going through my transition into becoming a veteran, or back to civilian, if you will. And yeah, so those that are new, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. If you do like this content, subscribe, comment. If you have any requests in regards to topics you want me to cover or anything like that, feel free to leave some comments below. All right, so I came into the Air Force back in 2006. The way it all kind of started, I was raised in San Antonio, right up the street from Lackland Air Force Base, probably not even a couple blocks away. I used to see the test pilots fly over all the time, and then on top of that, see graduations, which are pretty much every single weekend throughout the entire year. You get to see those types of graduations, and it was something that just kind of like imprinted, right? And I wanted to pursue that at some point at a very young age. So fast forward, I was in high school, joined the ROTC program, had a great leadership and mentors there, which I was a bit of a knucklehead in high school. I used to get into a lot of trouble, even though being in ROTC, I was kind of still, transitioning through like getting my stuff together and also becoming a functional citizen, right? So, but where it came down to it, I ended up completing 3 years of ROTC, and I had a talk with my leadership in the junior ROTC program in regards to if I did truly wanted to join the Air Force. They had to give me the recommendation letter that comes with it in order to receive a slightly higher pay coming in right off the bat without having to sign up for like a 6-year contract or having college under your belt, which are some other factors that go into that. So initially they weren't actually going to give it to me. The colonel was, within his rights to say he wouldn't endorse me, mainly because, again, I was a knucklehead in high school and I did used to get in a lot of trouble. I didn't always wear the uniform appropriately on the days we were supposed to, showed up on time, and just being a teenager, right? I just didn't apply myself as much then. Well, I did, but in that regard anyways. So we did have a talk, and just to see if I truly wanted the Air Force lifestyle, and if it was something that I really wanted to pursue. After our talk, he said he would sleep on it, gave it a couple of days, and then contacted me. Ended up, endorsing, giving me the endorsement letter. And between that time, I was also attempting to contact the Air Force recruiter. Called, emailed, showed up at the office, and now being an Air Force recruiter, or have done that, the Air Force recruiting aspect. Back then, I was like, this guy doesn't work. He's never here. He's never in his office. Marine and Army, anytime I showed up to the recruiting office, they were constantly just hounding me, right? Hey, man, he ain't there. Come over here, talk to us. Let's see what we could do for you. And that was definitely not a route I was trying to go. So, yeah, it took a while before I got a hold of the Air Force recruiter. And it kind of, how it came about was, fast forward, I want to say maybe 4 months after I graduated. At this point, I still haven't got any contact with the Air Force recruiter. He's the mythical unicorn, I don't think he exists at that point. It just, you know, they're talked about but never seen, essentially. And at this point, it was during the summer, and I had already had a kind of a couple little side gigs where I was making money and just kind of enjoying life and trying to still figure out what I was going to do after high school. So one day, and a Marine recruiter approached me, and I don't really fully remember how it came about, but somehow I ended up in his office. And my mom, from the get-go, was very uncomfortable with me joining the military, and it wasn't something that she wanted for me. But at the end of the day, it wasn't her choice. So I ended up in his office. We ended up talking, and this guy was giving me the whole deal, right? The whole lowdown. Hey man, if you do this and you're gonna get to do this, X, Y, Z. What typically is expected, as most people think that recruiters are like salesmen, he came off that way. And I'm not saying that all recruiters are like that. There's a lot of recruiters that definitely enjoy their job and they're about the people. I myself, that's the way I approach recruiting when I was on the bag, is what we call it, and actively recruiting individuals, is understanding where they're coming from, and then seeing if they're a good fit, and vice versa, we're a good fit for what they want to accomplish with their lives. But this guy was not. He was like, hey man, you're gonna do this, you're gonna travel the world, make money, XYZ. And I was hesitant, and again, I can't tell you exactly where my mindset was at that time, but it definitely so here's the situation. There was a motorcycle sitting inside his office, which I'm pretty sure he used as a sales point, coming in, something to kind of get the applicants to like, this might be a good idea. He had, which at that time was my dream bike, which was a Hayabusa. Those that know, you know. And if you're watching this and you're somebody that's a moto head and likes motorcycles, leave a comment on the video. Tell me what's your favorite bike, and what was your first bike that you bought, and what is your current ride, and what you're currently riding. And if you don't already own your dream bike, what is your dream? All right. So that bike was there, and I remember it as bright canary yellow, and it had all these metallic, like tribal decals on the side. And it was just sitting there. I kept staring at it, and he caught me looking at it, and he's like, hey man, do you like that bike? And I was like, yeah, actually it's my dream bike. And he's like, tell you what, man, if you sign right now, I can promise you this bike could be yours in like under a year less. I was just like, you know what? Nah, man, I don't know. I was still hesitant. Like, he had already all the documents in front of me, kind of ready to go. And mind you, leading up to that appointment, I had not said anything to my mom, and nobody knew that I was even there. So I thought. And as I'm about to like even consider putting the signature down on these papers, my mom storms in. And she's this little petite Hispanic woman. She's about maybe 5'4", 5'3", just shy of like 120 pounds soaking wet, maybe a little less than that, man. My mom's really tiny. Anyway, so she comes in, storming in, thick Hispanic accent, and just started laying into the recruiter, and just causing a whole scene. And we weren't the only ones in the office. The recruiter also had a couple other people waiting on him to, go through the spiel. And what's it called? So she's going in on both of us. She drags me out. I'm 18 at this point, right? And I'm standing at 6'1", at the time, probably like 160 pounds, maybe a little less than that. And she drags me out. And she's like, I already don't want you to join the military, and X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And if you are going to join, it's sure as hell is not going to be the Marines. You're going to join the Air Force or the Navy at the minimum, but you're not joining the Marines. The recruiter's like trying to calm her down. Man, please. And she ain't having it. So she's like, no, shut the F up, get back in your office. leave my son alone. Don't never call my house. Don't show up at my house. All this stuff. And so he ends up walking back, kind of just like lets it go. He's like, "Hey man, if you're still interested, give me a call, or set up another appointment." And as we're discussing in the parking lot, just like trying to get my 2 cents in and why I'm like, I'm a grown man. I get to make my decisions. I happen to watch the Air Force recruiter jump out of his little Govy or government vehicle. And he was in his dress blues, looking all sharp, had a coffee in his hand and a little briefcase in the other. And I'm watching him and I was like, is that the Air Force recruiter? I was like, oh, snap. I'm like, Mom, hold that thought. Sprint over there to him. I'm like, hey, man, are you the Air Force recruiter? And he's like, yeah. And I help you? And I was like, yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you. Where the hell you been, man? Like, you don't even work. This is like the first time I've ever even seen you. I've called, whatever. Gave him the lowdown. And he's like, all right. And then my mom's running over and still screaming at me. And she walks in. We all walk into the office and she's like, I really don't want him to join, but if he is to join, the Air Force is definitely the route that makes more sense for him, right? And the Air Force recruiter's like, all right, cool. And he's like, don't leave and go into any other office. Do you understand me? It's like, yeah, okay, Mom, whatever. So she ends up leaving, and the Air Force recruiter puts his stuff down, and he's like, what was that about? And kind of gave him a back brief on what happened next door, and he's just cracking up, right? He's like, nice. All right, man. So what is your story? Like, what do you want? What is the reason why you're even considering the Air Force? And I was like, honestly, at the time I was just like, I just want direction. I have ideas of where I want my life to go. I don't know how to get there, right? At that point, I didn't know how to get there. And, as a aspiring entrepreneur too, and at that age too, I'm like, look, I know what I want, and staying here locally is not really conducive to the lifestyle that I want to create for myself and my future family. So, like, I think the Air Force could definitely provide an opportunity to expand my experience in life and just knowledge in general. And then not only that, give me the opportunity to travel if that is the case. And he's like, all right, man, look, if this is what you want, I will help you the best I can. I can't guarantee you anything, right? And that was the biggest thing that he's like, I'm not going to guarantee anything to you. So he gave me, the instructions on how the process was going to work from start to finish, and then tackle anything that would populate or show up at that time. And yeah, at that point, my Air Force journey began. So this is 2005 at that point, and the process was a little lengthy for me. I ended up taking the ASVAB a couple times because there were some issues. The first time there was an issue at the MEPS building where we had to evacuate the facility, and then having to come back, and there was like, I think there was like a thunderstorm or something, and it cut down the power, so they couldn't restore power back in time. We ended up having to leave. So finally, after testing and getting my scores back, we went through the process of figuring out, all right, you've gone through the physical, you've gone to the testing, here are the jobs that you qualify. And I had it set in my mind once I found out about this particular position, which was Loadmaster. I'm like, this is going to give me potentially the best opportunity for travel. Outside of that, everything else didn't really matter. The biggest thing for me was travel and experience, right? So I was like, Loadmaster is going to be my number one. I'm optimistic, but I understand that there are processes that don't guarantee me. So he's like, all right, cool. So and the process has changed a lot. So those that are going through the process now, it's not what it is now. Okay, the process has significantly changed. So, all right, so we go through that. We ended up my list, and fast forward, I don't know, at this point it was like another 6-7 months, and still nothing. there's no availability for the jobs that I'm looking for. And he's like, hey man, have you considered any other jobs? Do you want to reassess your list, maybe add a couple more? I'm like, nah man, I think I'll stick with that. I have a job, I'm making money right now. And so the money wasn't a big factor for me. And then we end up coming up on like 10 months at this point, and I'm getting antsy. Like, things at home are like just not where I want them to be. And I'm getting that itch just to leave the nest, right? And just be on my own, be my own man. And I ended up having a conversation with my recruiter and told him, hey, look, man, at this point, whatever's available, let me know. Like, I don't even care. Definitely just let me know. As long as it's not services, which is, there's a lot of sub jobs within services that could be cool, but I wasn't interested in that. Services typically deals with like culinary, and like you could end up working at the lodging, so local hotels on base, and a plethora of other kind of those types of jobs, right? And that wasn't what I was interested in. So he ended up calling me up maybe about a couple weeks after that conversation, and he's like, hey man, I got security forces for you. And for those that know, it's 3PO is the code assigned to that particular job. And he's like, all right, I got one that leaves in like less than 5 days. If you want it and you're serious about like, you're just ready to go, this is what I got right now. So what do you say? I did a couple, he gave me an hour to do some research on the job. And I was like, yeah, man, you know what? Seems cool. Can I retrain, right? And for those that are going through the process right now, retraining is always on the table. It's never a guarantee, just like anything in life, right? It's never guaranteed. And there are certain criteria that you have to meet with retraining depending on the career field that you're going to. So keep that in mind, all right? Especially if you're going through the process now. Don't go out there and say, hey, man, I saw someone on YouTube said you can retrain whenever you want and get the job you want. That is not true, okay? So we signed the contract for the 3PO security forces, and I ended up leaving March 1st of 2006. I ship out, and my ship out was a little weird. I ended up, I flew in, and instead of driving in, which is often what happens, they put you in a bus and they drive you in. Forgot why exactly they ended up flying me and like two other individuals. We ended up flying in, and we're going through the airport terminals to find out where all the kids that were showing up for BMT. And there's these signs posted up, BMT and then arrows. And I'm walking, and as I'm getting closer to where all the drill instructors are, or MTIs, essentially military training instructors, the noise gets louder, right? They're just yelling at people, and back then they had a little bit more leeway with their vocabulary, if you will. And people weren't as sensitive back then, or maybe they were, but hey man, suck it up, and press on. Which on the back end, basic training was fun. In the midst of everything, it was a complete nightmare, but after everything was said and done, it was fun. So I'm walking in, I hear the screams, everybody's getting yelled at. At this point, I had never shaved before, nor did I have anybody to really teach me, and YouTube wasn't a thing, so it's not like I could research videos on how to properly shave. So I'm an 18-year-old young man, never shaven before, and as I'm about to turn the corner, all I hear is one of the instructors yell at kids, like, what the, what do you call that thing on your face? And you better shave that. Bah, 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 bah. And I was like, oh, heck no, that's not going to be me. So I turned into the first restroom right before I got into that same hallway, and took out one of the little dollar razors that I ended up buying, a little pack, and just essentially dry shaved. Put some water on my face, got a little bit of that hand soap in there, and then knocked it out. Mind you, I've never shaven before. So then that situation became a bigger situation. I ended up like cutting my lip up a little bit. I pressed too hard with the razor. So now I got like beads of blood just showing up on my upper lip. And I didn't notice it until I got called out on it. So I turned the corner thinking I'm good. Nobody's going to notice, that I just shaved. And then one of the instructors just like, what the, like, what is that? And then he gives me like a piece of tissue, and I dab it, and it's just blood everywhere. So yeah. And often in basic training at that time, I don't know if they still do it, if there was something that made you stand out, that would typically be your nickname given to you at some point during the process of basic training. At the time when I joined, I believe it was 6.5 weeks of basic training. I'm not entirely sure what it is now, but I will update y'all on the next video when I find out as well. So basic training starts. Day one is like just chaotic. We get in, they bus you from the airport over to Lackland Air Force Base, where the Air Force basic training is. That's for all Air Force. Anybody that joins the Air Force, no matter what part of the country you're signing up, if you're in Florida or New York or California, everybody's coming to Texas, to San Antonio, to Lackland Air Force Base. And so we ended up getting to the base. The in-processing is like just chaotic. They give you this big giant vanilla envelope with all your information, all the documents that you signed with the recruiter, and this is assembly line. They put you in a room, person sits you down, they take out all the paper, take out what they need, and then send you to the next one, and so forth and so on. And like, there's no time to think. You're essentially like just kind of going like cattle. Boom, go over there, keep it moving. Don't say anything, just eyes forward. Like, don't even think. You don't got time to think, just do. Boom. And remember it was like probably close to 11 or midnight at that point, and we're still in processing, right? It's hundreds of kids in processing. Not just kids, some of them were like in their 30s too. So current age limit to join has changed, so you could be a little older. I believe it's somewhere in the 40s now, but don't quote me on it. On the next video, I'll definitely confirm it and let y'all know. So we end up in processing. It's late. At this point, we haven't really eaten since the time we got off the bus or the airport dragged over. And they give you this like frozen little tray with a sandwich, a bag of chips, an apple, and like a juice box, from what I remember. And you basically sit there and either eat it or you don't. I wasn't really hungry with all the stress and everything. That kind of goes out the window, right? So then I gotta check my mic. Sometimes this stuff feels bad. Little light lets me know. So I get this sandwich, and it's like frozen solid. They keep them in a freezer and just pop them out and give them to you. And so I didn't end up eating. I took like 2 bites out of my apple and drank my juice box, and just got together. And they put you on a bus, send you to your whatever basic training squadron you're assigned to. And at that time, it was the 331st squadron, which is now retired. That squadron doesn't exist anymore. And our mascot, we were named the Predators. Obviously, that didn't age well. And our mascot was like a Black Panther or something, from what I remember. And so they decommissioned that squadron along with a couple other ones. But so we get into our squadron, and we're getting yelled at from the moment we get off the bus. It's like, get off the effing bus, get your bags, don't look around, get in line, do this, do that, drop the bag. And if they tell you to drop the bag, and people would just like drop it, pick it up, set it down, and some people were like so caught up in like just days because either lack of sleep and just not eating and all that stuff. You're just kind of in a haze that first like couple of days. And we end up getting assigned to our dorms. We get in there, and it's just like you're having that. Some people have it early on. I had it like right at the bus when they first got in and they told us to get off the bus. They're just get the off the bus, don't fuck around. Pardon my language, and I'll try to bleep some of it out if I can. So, and I was just like, oh, I'm reassessing my choice right now. I don't know if this is gonna be like what I like. Not that what I wanted, but it's like, oh, you're having your oh shit moment. So, we get into our dormitories. They give us our gear, and then just like lights out. At this point, it's like maybe 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, and you're exhausted. You're confused. You're like sleep deprived, and some of us were hungry. And we're barely. It felt like we didn't even get to sleep. Essentially, I just felt like I closed my eyes. Next thing you know, they come back in and get the fuck up, and they're like just tossing everybody over and just screaming, kicking beds and all this other stuff, flipping beds with some people in it, which was kind of funny, not at the time. And you get up and start the day. At this point, like you're going on maybe an hour and a half of sleep, if that, if you got lucky. That first night, I remember in the distance in the room, somebody crying. Yeah, I remember just kind of like a little sobbing in the distance, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that guy's going through it right now." Like definitely second guessing this choice coming in. And yeah, the full 6.5 weeks. If you're not training coming into the Air Force, I highly recommend you get some kind of cardio, in your regimen daily. That was kind of the biggest factor. A lot of people fail the physical assessment test or PT test because of the cardio. The run is what killed a lot of people. And if you fail, they give you another chance to pass. But if you fail, they wash you back into another team that came in after the time you came in. And if you fail again, you run the risk of getting discharged at that point. And that process can be lengthy. So it's oftentimes better just to get through basic training and start your career than, oh, I'm just gonna, get out. This is not what I want, and I'm gonna fake an injury or actually injure myself, which in some cases it did happen. Some people were crazy, man. They're like, this is not what I want. This is not what I thought it was gonna be. And this dude literally threw himself down a flight of stairs to just mess himself up and try to get medically released from the Air Force. And his process took months before he got released. We got, our team ended up graduating, moving on to our technical school, where at that point you do your training for the job specifically that you came in. And he was still stuck in basic training, going through the medical process to get released. And yeah, it's a bad time. So definitely think about if this is a career path that you're considering, there is a lot to think about it. And it's oftentimes just going to be easier to go through it. Like most things in life, right? There are pain points when there is growth. Even if you're not joining the military, you want to excel in something, you want to, whether it's a business, a relationship, whatever it may be, there's growing pain with it. And, if you want it to work, you work through it, work through the pain, and, you will grow. And then you'll look back on it as like, yeah, in the midst of it, it sucked, but like, I'm glad I did it. In some cases, you might say, it still sucked, right? But I'm here, and there has been growth, and so forth. So, yeah, basic training was a trip. It definitely was fun. I got to meet a lot of people. And funny enough, things kind of came back full circle. So I joined out of the Dallas processing center when I came into the Air Force, and I worked for the same squadron that put me in. So came back full circle, which was very interesting. Honestly, I didn't expect to come back to Texas anytime soon in my career, and I believe God brought me back here for a reason. And in the midst of all that, I got to see my family again, even though I saw them through periodically with vacation and stuff like that. But be around them and close to them. I love my family. I got 2 brothers and a sister and my mom. And I also got to meet my wife, Tiana, which has been a blessing, and I love her. And so yeah, and I ended up working with one of my recruiters that I work with is a guy that I went through basic training with. So it was kind of very cool situation, especially when I was his trainer because I trained recruiters and was training recruiters early on in my position here with this group. And I came out, he was one of the first guys that I went out to train, and we looked at each other and he's like, Orihuela, do you go by O? And I was like, yeah. He's like, hey man, I think we went through basic training together. Do you remember? And then he spit out some names. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Hey, man. And it was just, we just caught up. But it was funny that kind of, situation. The Air Force is big and small in a lot of ways. There are oftentimes that throughout my career, I've met individuals, early on. And then I met somebody else and they're like, yeah, I know so-and-so. And, we were stationed at this place and, oh, yeah, and this. And so it's big in the sense of how, as the organization, but small in the sense of like you'll get to meet so many people throughout your career that will cross paths with other individuals and friends that you meet. And that's definitely one of the biggest things that I enjoyed about this career so far is all the individuals I've met. Some have been borderline like family members, right? We watch out after each other. The camaraderie is something different comparatively to like the friends that I had when I was in high school. There's definitely a deeper connection there. So, and then the mentorships, good and bad, right? Bad individuals, bad characters can also teach you things. So I definitely had a lot of experience with both, and I'm very grateful for those experiences. So yeah, basic training, 6.5 weeks. You go through it all, the physical aspect and the combative aspect. And I'll try to find some videos that kind of showcase that. And again, I came in 2006. Basic training has changed a lot over the years. So there has been some pros and some cons, and those are just my opinions. None of what I say is a reflection of the Air Force. So keep that in mind. And these are just some of my opinions and my experiences at that time. So basic training, and those that are veterans or currently in, what are some of your fondest memories about basic training? Late nights, shining boots, right? Or was it polishing chrome, or what detail did you do, right? Obviously they weren't always fun, but what kind of detail did you assign or get assigned, and what was your favorite part of that? Right? I was really good at folding clothes. That was like the one thing that I was really good at. So my little drawer cubby that I was assigned, my stuff looked slick. So everybody had a job, and if you were really good at one, you were just good. That was your job to help, right? We're a team. So if one has a crappy drawer, everybody's getting it, right? Everybody's getting smoked. The instructor will come in and do the inspections, and if something's off, it's not just the one individual getting punished. We were all getting punished because we could have easily helped that individual out and fixed it instead of just letting him drown it by himself, right? So other guys were really good at rolling socks and stuff like that. And comment down below too if you're interested in like some of those what is it? If you want me to do a video on how to do those things, right? Whether it's packing, stuff like that. My wife likes to make fun of me because I'm very particular when it comes to packing, and so I optimize my packing skills, and those came in handy, right? The skills that I learned in basic training definitely come in handy, especially when we're traveling abroad and we're looking at a couple of weeks of stay. Yeah, I'm trying to minimize to most to 2 bags, right? My roller and maybe a small duffel bag, and I'll make that work. I'll pack at least 3 weeks worth of clothes in that, and everything will fit. I make sure of that. Uh, Tiana likes to point that out. Sometimes she'll, just kind of, I wouldn't say she makes fun of me, but she definitely gets a chuckle out of that situation. But yeah, comment down below if you did have, like, what was your best fondest memory in basic training, right? And do you still talk to some of the individuals that you met in basic training? So yeah, well, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed the video, and definitely if you have any questions in regards to basic training or even the process now, comment down below and I'll take those questions and I will fill it in the next part. And yeah, thanks for joining. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.